This is All About Home Construction, and here's your hosts, Terry Cannell Beck and Randy Blake.
That's right. Good morning, Randy.
Morning, Terry, and everybody out there.
That's it. Happy Saturday morning to you, buddy. And
Happy Saturday to you.
yeah, welcome to All About Home Construction. What's been going on, man?
Just working, estimating.
Not you.
Always.
Always estimating. Just making it up as you go along.
I wished I could. I wished I wouldn't have to estimate.
Fair.
You know, that's that is just part of the job, but some of them are harder than others.
I completely understand that. So, well, good. I'm glad, glad there's something to be estimated. So, that's always a good thing, at least, right? At least you got that going for you.
Yes, it is.
But just all about home construction here at WATA. And again, we want to thank all of our listeners out there. Thanks to all of our listeners on the podcast. Our ratings went up again, as we were talking about off the air. So that's a good thing. Good thing. We like all of our listeners out there, and especially the podcast land and the radio land.
Yes, we do.
So good stuff. Good stuff. So yeah, lots of estimation going on this week. That seems to be the kind of the norm still, right? Here in the high country, at least.
Well, you got people that prices is devastating on everything.
Right.
Well, this is what I'd like, but then when you give them the estimate on what they would like,
This is not what I want. I get it.
You've been there, done that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's that fine line. Like you got to figure out what you want. We talk so much on the show. You got to have a plan, and estimation is part of the plan. But yeah.
Well, you have to know what you want. And see,
You're supposed to know what you want.
well, not always.
Well, that's what I'm saying. A lot of times that don't happen. I mean, you should know what you want, but we find that's not always the case, right?
Yeah, well, you always, and I have no problem with this, but you always have the homeowner goes, well, I have to see it to understand it.
Right.
Well, you can't estimate it out if you can't see it.
Yeah. Well, and there's actually, I read years ago about this study. It was talking about men and women and like visual, and just how especially women overall tend to be more visual than men. And so they have to, as a general rule,
Yeah.
This study was saying that like women see it, whereas men can kind of abstract think about it. It was a really kind of interesting.
Well, I still draw everything out. I mean, by hand, but it's more to I know the nuts and bolts of the project, and that helps out a bunch.
Sure. Well, it's good stuff. Good stuff.
There's nothing worse than the unknown. What I mean by that is you misfigure something. All right.
It happens. Especially in this day and time when, even new construction, like it definitely happens in remodeling, right?
Yes.
But even in new construction, prices change, as we've seen over the last 5 years. Prices change so much. Materials, options change so fast. That,
Yes, they do.
It's hard to kind of come in and see that and anticipate that. I mean, you have to anticipate at some level, but there is the level of anticipation, right?
Correct. In any project, and that's the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
I mean, when I look at a project, I look at a project in 3D. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how I see it in my head.
Right.
And trying to dissect it, it's just dissection's what you're doing.
Yeah.
A lot of people, the estimators, you plug in the square foot and it throws it out there for you. Mm-hmm. I have square footage, linear footage, and stuff like that, but I still don't trust the computer.
Right. Well, that's what gets me. And I actually, not just this last week or two, had a conversation and someone was talking about the price per square foot of a house right now. And I mean, you can give me that, right? Like what would you say is the average price per square foot?
Well, on the low side, it's going to be $400.
Okay.
I mean, people don't realize that because I was quoting a job the other day, and the faucet that they wanted, $600.
See, that's where I was going to lead next, was that it's really just an arbitrary thing to say. I mean, I know we need something to kind of wrap our heads around, okay, this is what it's going to cost me to build a house, but you could build a house for $400, and that's not going to be the same. Like when you start adding, like you said, you start adding certain fixtures. Well, now you're jumping up to 500, 600 before, you know what I mean? Like before you know it, you can really jump up. And a lot of that's not the construction of the house in terms of the shell of the house, right?
It's the materials.
It's the finished products, I think, too. You know, like the fixtures, how many lights do you want? Do you want 2 lights in this room, or do you want 1 light in this room? You know, things like that add up quick. And I think that's sort of the issue with it.
You know, and then just the cost of difference between, let's say, OSB sheeting and plywood. There's a big difference. And I was trying to find the price on it while I was sitting here.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I mean, that's the thing. There's just so many options. You know, what sheeting do I want? Do I want this? Do I want that?
Well, OSB is $23.90. Okay. Now, Avantech, which is a very good product. I don't recommend it on 2-foot centers, but it's one of the things that can be down on, and it can rain for 6 months and not mold.
Right.
All right. That's $52.38.
So that's close to half or twice the cost.
Yeah. Then you get into the yellow pine underlayment flooring, and it's $43.48.
Yeah.
You know, and when we started, I guess a few years ago, when under the first Trump administration, when it went out of sight,
right, and
the housing and all that mess, we seen the Avantech go to 105 a sheet.
Yeah. Back during the COVID stuff, you and I were watching that, and it really jumped up. I mean, that's where my point is. It's like, in terms of building the house, right? Like when you're looking on black and white pieces of paper, okay, you need to underlayment. But then when you get to actually installing that underlayment, right, now you went from 23 to 50, whatever, $5.
Yeah, $52.38.
Yeah, so I mean, but whereas on paper that's one product, right? Like that's, in other words, that's underlayment that checks off that box, but that's a big price difference in that box. Right?
Correct.
And so that's why I always struggle when people say, like, well, what's the cost per square foot? Well, I mean, it really just depends. Like, what do you want?
Standing seam roof. Okay, I hadn't quoted one in a while, so I can't. But as a rule of thumb, a standing seam roof is going to be 3 times as expensive as a 3-foot wide metal panel or shingles.
Right.
Then you get into specialty colors. That can get you again. I know we're seeing a lot of roofs out here that's a copper penny color.
Yep.
Well, they're not too bad, but if you get the real copper penny metal that was patented by MBCI that shines like a metal flake car, now you pay top line for that.
Right. So these the common copper ones that you see, is that not real copper?
No. Okay. Like over at New Market Center?
Right.
That's a painted standing seam in copper.
Makes sense. Looks good.
Now, I did have access to copper standing seam, real copper standing.
That's cool.
We did a lot of roof coverings over bay windows and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay.
And but the one standing seam panel I really enjoyed was a little 12-inch panel that's 7/8 of an inch high. Yeah.
Will it stay copper, or will it tarnish? The greenish?
No, now it will tarnish because that's
it's real copper.
Yeah, it oxidized, and that's how it cleaned itself.
Yeah.
The company that we ordered it out of Raleigh can make it anywhere from 12 inches wide up to 2 foot wide standing seam panel.
Right, panels.
I wouldn't recommend a 2 foot wide panel, but especially out of copper, even though it's heavy, the wind can get under it if you don't hem it.
And then you got to sell.
And the whole idea about standing seam is not having any fasteners in the roof.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. Good stuff. All right. Well, should we go ahead and jump into our topic before we take a break? Get started.
Whatever you'd like to do.
Let's do that. Why not? So, we always like a good topic, and you actually had some conversations this week about this one, which sort of led to us thinking about that, and it's one that we've mentioned on the show before, but it's under your feet, so you don't think about this, especially the homeowner, right? You don't sort of think about this this equation of the building, right?
Correct. And that's your floor joist. And how many houses have you walked across that have bounced?
Yep. So floor joist spans, for those that are new to the construction world, right? This floor joist essentially what holds up the floor of the house.
Correct.
And so we see rough framed, houses and we see those floor joists running across before the sheeting, and then eventually the flooring gets put over top of it, right? But they're not all equal. In other words, the width, the thickness of the boards, of the span, the joists themselves are different. The materials can be different. It all just sort of depends on how far that has to span over.
Correct. And due to the span, the longer your span, the bouncier your floor system is.
Yeah.
But it come down to a time that now we have charts. Y'all can get online and actually look on a span chart.
Yeah.
And to see what you have to have on your projects, okay? And because not really jumping off topic, but like a lot of decks, a deck load is 40-pound live load, okay? Mm-hmm. So if you really want to use a 2x8 on 16-inch centers, the maximum span is 11 foot 10 inches.
Right.
Excuse me, that's southern pine.
Sure.
And but spruce is 12 foot 3 because spruce is stronger now.
Right. All right, we'll take a break and we'll come back. I want to dig into this a lot more. Thanks for listening to us. That's right. All about home construction here on WATA. Thanks for listening to us. Yeah. All right. So again, one of the big questions, Randy, that we talk about a lot when it comes to framing and flooring and framing the floor is how far can a floor joist actually span, right? Now, I guess there's a technical answer, like this is what the code allows answer. And then there's actually like a practical answer. And that's more of like, you don't want it to bounce. This is what's going to make a nice flooring, right? Again, going to what we've always talked about when it comes to code, building a house to code versus building it above code, right?
Correct.
To code is the minimum. And you know, that's kind of like when you're baking a cake and you add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. We all know that that's just the minimum. Who actually measures the cinnamon in their cake, in their pies, right? So it goes back to that sort of that same thing, right? Like the practical answer. But so I guess what we're really talking about today is a little of both, kind of hitting that sweet spot, right? Like this is what you have to do, and then there's sort of like this is what you should do, right?
Yeah. And it's quite important, and the reason I say that is because you're going to build your own house. You want to build it out of your own hands.
Right.
And I know you want to save money and cut corners, but down the road you might want to sell that house. And first thing somebody comes in and they start walking across the floor, the buyer, and they're going, well, this floor bounces.
Yeah.
Well, that is part of deflection, but was it your fault that you made your floor joist too small? Mm-hmm. I mean, which you can. Don't get me wrong. Because, you know, a 2x8 10-foot long is $10.62.
Right.
All right. A 2x10 10-foot long is $12.12. Right. So you might go for the 2x8. Mm-hmm. The only problem with the 2x8 is if it's a crawl space, it won't meet your R value. You can't put insulation in a 2x8 R30. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Where a 2x10 you can. But you need to pay attention to the spans because lumber's not like it was 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. And to give you an idea, on a 30-pound live load, 10-pound dead load, a 2x10 can only span 15 feet 8 inches.
Right.
All right. On a 40-pound live load, 10-pound dead load, it drops down to 14. On a 50-pound live load, it drops down to 12 foot 10. On a 60-pound live load, it drops down to 11 foot 10.
Right. Well, you know, we talk about bounce because that's the most obvious.
Correct.
You know, but there's other things, right? Like, I mean, here's the catch. Kind of like what you're saying is just because a 2x10 can span, 16 feet ish, give or take,
well,
right?
It's max on 30-pound is 15.8.
Okay. So see, that doesn't mean though it should, because you want those spans, like a shorter span is what I'm trying to say. It means like a stiffer floor, right?
Correct.
But it also means a quieter floor. So it's not just that bouncing. It's going to help with things like squeaks because there's less movement, and then squeaks is coming from
that
movement.
helps control it. And
right.
You being the reason we got asked to do this show was because of hardwood flooring guy, and people complaining about the floor's moving. Even if you staple it down, it's going to move because of the floor joist moving.
And you can have some cracked drywall from down the road too, right? Like it's going to transfer that over. So when you got a lot of deflection over time, it's going to crack your drywall. Now you're going to have to redo that. So it's not just a comfort thing. I mean, it is a comfort thing. And you know, because no one wants to walk on a bouncy floor, but and sometimes, like I know when I say bouncy, there's no technical like definition of bouncy, right? Like it just moves, but nobody likes a bouncy, and sometimes it is almost like a trampoline. I mean, I've walked across some that you really can feel like you're walking on almost like a rubber floor, right? I mean, like I've seen some that's
I've walked across houses where not the furniture. But on the end table, the ashtray would rattle. How about that? Or a glass.
Yeah.
To give you an idea about the 40-pound live load, 10-pound live load, Well, if you change it to 40-pound live load, 20-pound dead load, it drops from a 14-foot span down to a 12-10 span.
Okay.
12 foot, 10 inches. See, that's a big drop. And so that's things you need to think about. But I think North Carolina's come to recognize that the lumber's not the same, and they put it in their book that cracks can now be seen in hardwood flooring.
Right.
And that's because of the house movement.
Yeah. Okay, so you just said two things. You said dead load and live load. Those are two terms that kind of come up a lot when we're talking about these floor joists. The dead load is just sort of that permanent weight on your floor, right? Like that's the floor itself, right? That's the wood, counting the joist. That's the subflooring. That's the whatever carpet, hardwood, tile, whatever you put over it, right? And also any of the drywall that's attached. So like if it's finished underneath it, right? Like if it's holding drywall up, that's all considered dead load, right? In other words, that's not going to really change.
No.
Then the live load is what? That's the people, the furniture?
Yes. Stuff going on in the house.
So
your furniture,
yeah.
Let's say if you're going to put a piano in there, all right, then you want to increase your live load.
Right. But it also, too, like the live load in a bathroom is going to be different than the live load in your big, living room where you're having a big fancy dinner party over. You don't have 10 people in the bathroom at once, right?
Correct.
But in the bathroom, you do have bathtubs. And so you gotta adjust for that. And so every room sort of depending on the purpose of the room could influence your live loads, right?
Correct. But you're not going to change your floor joists out.
Right.
Per room.
Per room, right.
And that's not going to happen. But when you design your house, now you're going to be designing your house basically with 2x10s. 2x10s or 2x12s.
Right.
Because you can't, like we talked earlier, you can't get the R value out of a 2x8, even though the 2x8 might do your spans.
Right. It's not going to qualify for the
if you're going to use
requirements.
If you're going to decide to use a 2x8, then you could switch over to a foam.
Right.
Insulation in it.
I mean, I guess.
But then you're not getting the trade-off because foam's more expensive.
Let's say it was structurally you could use a 2x8, but then you got to come back and put furring strips to keep that insulation for 2x10s. Which is pointless, but theoretically.
Now say that again.
You could go with 2x8, but then you have to come back with some kind of furring strips underneath to add 2 inches to make it a 2x10. Structurally, it wouldn't make it a 2x10.
No, it would not.
But in terms of holding up insulation, it would make it a 2x10.
A lot.
That's a lot of work for nothing.
I know you've been in a house where they've cut the notch out to hang the floor joists on the ledger.
Yeah.
Under the code. Now, if that was a 2x10 and you notched it out 1.5 inches, now that brings that
2x8
to a 2x8.
Yeah.
It's no longer a 2x10.
Yeah. Yep.
It has to have full bearing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So most, I guess the general rule, I don't know what the code is here in North Carolina, but 40, 50 pounds per square foot, is that sort of where we're falling into?
30 depends on. I think it also depends on altitude.
Okay.
Because I don't know if it's still in the codes or not, but it used to be that a lot of houses, the higher you got in altitude, the narrower the overhang on your house. Because remember, a lot of the houses on Beach Mountain had 4-foot overhangs?
Yep.
Well, that's considered a big sale.
Well, that makes total sense, actually.
This is a hard show here.
There's just a lot of math involved in this one, too. Not gonna lie. So, all right, because it goes back to the actual design, right? Because, like you mentioned, just because you can use it doesn't mean you should use it. So, typically speaking, not crawl space where we've first floor we've kind of covered that needs to be at least a 2x10.
Yes,
but
then it depends on your spans.
Depends on the span, right? So when you go on up, like 2x8s, is that typically what you're seeing in terms of like hallways and bedrooms and things like that on a 12-foot span?
Yeah. Now that's a little lot. That's different in your span chart for a ceiling joist.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You can get R38 in it, but when it comes in under your rafters right there, like on a 312 pitch,
Yeah.
that's going to compress it.
Okay.
So it used to be a lot of people take R19 and put on top of the plate. Then that way they got the baffle that allows the air to come through.
Gotcha.
It's a science to it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. So, like, you got to look at a bedroom, right? A bedroom that spans 12 feet is going to be different than a bedroom that spans 14, 16 feet.
Correct.
And I think that's where it's hard to say, like, well, in a bathroom, all bathrooms should have a 2x8. All bedrooms should have a 2x8. No, it doesn't work that way, right?
Correct.
You got a large living room, kitchen, big open space. Sometimes that can span, close to 20 feet, right? I mean,
Yeah, we've
sometimes
seen
more,
them.
and I mean, that's the thing. And so I guess it depends. And so that's where the structurally, engineering wise, you really have to pay attention to that span because that doesn't mean you can't have a great big open room that's 40 feet open. It just means that the floor joists themselves, which is probably a whole other show, unless we start talking about some engineered products. But in terms of wood floor joists, right, you're not going to have a joist really that practically that spans 40 feet.
No, you're not. I can't think of the company right now, but there's one metal company, not talking about a joist, an I-joist.
Right.
But they had a floor joist, a 14-inch steel floor joist would span 33 foot.
Yeah. But I mean that's the thing. Like we can start talking about some engineered products, some I-joists, some some LVLs, things like that pop up. But in terms of wood, like you really are not gonna expand when you start getting into that 15 to 20 foot range, right? Like that's
Well, a 2x12 can't even span that.
right.
And that's the thing. 17.7, I think, is long.
7, yeah. So, okay. So, again, lots of things going into it. I want to ask you another question when we come back from the break, and that's about the spacing itself. So, let's take a quick break, and we'll come right back. Thanks for listening to us. That's right. All about home construction here on WAETA. Thanks for listening to us. And again, thanks to all of our listeners out there on the podcast, All About Home Construction. If there's a listen to it on the radio, go back and listen to it on the podcast if you missed stuff, you want to go back, or more importantly, if you want to share it with friends. That's what we want you to do. We want to share it with friends, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're a friendly show. And you're our friend. We want to share it with your friends so that we're more friends with more friends. So there we go.
Correct.
Talking a little bit this morning about floor joists and just some floor joist spans. Some kind of again, we sort of touched on the common versus the ideal. And this is what we have to have versus this is what we want to have, right? Dead load, live load, things like that. So let's talk a little bit, Randy, about spacing. Now, generally speaking, when we think of building a house, when we think of walls and floors, we think of that spacing 16 inches, right? 16 inches on center. We hear that all the time. That essentially means what? What does 16 inches on center mean?
Well, that is a standard of measurement that allows everything to break. All right, and there's actually 4 different standards of spacing that you can use in your house. Okay, one is 12 inch, one is 16 inch. One is 19.2. Most people don't know what that little black diamond is on your tape.
I was going to say, that's the little diamond on your tape measure.
That's 19.2. And then you got 24 inch on centers.
Okay.
And what that means is when it says 12 inch on centers, on your layout, you'll come up 11 and a quarter and mark. All right? 3/4 of mark before the foot mark. That's so when you put that floor joist in, the plywood would break in the center of that joist.
In other words, it is, like you said, it is 12 inches between the middle of that one first board and the middle of the next board, right?
Correct.
You get that. That's where the 12-inch on centers or 16-inch on centers.
And I worked with guys down in Georgia, and they just put a center mark, and let you line your floor joists up on your own.
I've seen that, yeah.
And I'm going, do you do that on your walls too? He said, yeah, why? I said, have you not ever done paneling?
Yeah.
Paneling's not going to break like that. If you got one off 3/8 of an inch on this one, and
I see what you mean. Yeah, it's gonna slide it over, and one's gonna miss.
And about like guys framing walls, and I always stood on my walls when I framed them. That way, my weight's pushing everything to the floor. Mm-hmm. That's the reason your hammer handle's 16 inches long.
So you can swing.
Yeah. But getting back to
I just use
off that rabbit hole there.
Shoot it with a gun. It don't matter.
Well, I lost all my guns in the fire. So. I know we've talked about 30-pound live load and 40-pound live load. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a 30-pound live load 2x12 span. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the 12-inch centers on a 30-pound. This whole line I'm getting ready to give you is 30-pound live load.
Okay.
The maximum span that you can run is 16 foot 6 inches. 16-inch centers, the maximum is 14.4. So you've already lost 2 foot 2 on your span. Okay.
Yep.
19.2, you can only span 13 foot 11. 24 inches on center, 11 foot 8. See, that's a big difference. But now you go up to your 40-pound live load. On 12-inch centers, your maximum span, excuse me, I was wrong on the last span because I was picking up number 3s, and we don't ever use number 3s. So let me go back to, on 12-inch centers, you can span 21.4.
Okay.
All right, with number 2 lumber. 18.6 on 16-inch, 16.10 on 19-inch, and 15.1. All right, when you get into 2x12s with 40-pound live load, you can span 12-inch centers, 19 foot 1 inch. 16-inch centers, 16 foot 6. So see, that's a big drop right there. Okay, 19.2 inches, 15 foot 1 inch is maximum span.
Yeah, 15.1. Yeah.
24-inch centers, 13.6. So even though you made up your mind you're going to put everything on 2 foot centers, go to the 2x12 is the biggest structural lumber that you can get till you get to manufactured I-joists and stuff like that. All right. So one thing I learned about sturdy floors of plywood. All right.
Right.
It deflects a little, but it doesn't deflect as much as you think it would as a floor system. It will actually help that floor system. But if you go to the Vantech and put it on 2-foot centers, you'll actually get squeaks in your floor because it flexes more than it does.
Exactly.
Yeah. OSB doesn't flex as much as the other Vantech does.
Right.
But that's the reason I really like plywood over all of it.
Well, okay, but so what's the advantage of going 2 foot on center versus 16 inches on center?
Well,
I mean, eventually you're going to use, yes, you're using less lumber, but you got to use bigger lumber. So cost wise, is there really a difference?
probably not. But I look at it a lot of times. I don't ever like to put floor joists on 2-foot centers.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, if it's designed that way,
yeah.
and that's what it says on the plans, you have to do that.
A lot of times you see that with like lofts and things that have timbers.
Correct.
We're not talking floor joists. We're not talking 2x whatever. Typically you see what I see the most on the 2-foot centers again is the exposed beams. Right.
Correct.
So you see those on 2-foot centers some.
But I don't mind walls on 2-foot centers. That just puts more insulation in your wall.
Right.
There.
But it's using less lumber. But again, you got to use thicker lumber, and so are you really saving any?
Depends on what you're doing.
Okay.
Because we did do a house where we had 2x10 floor joists, and then one room we dropped down to 2x8 floor joists because we made the whole room a shower that you could hose down.
Yeah.
Toilet and all. It's a handicap bathroom that we had designed. So.
Okay. Well, I mean that's the thing is like you get some playing with it now. Not to get too far in the weeds, but hemlock and Douglas fir and yellow pine rather and spruce, like they're actually, as we all know, they're different materials, different woods, and so that's going to change just a little bit.
It is, and not much, but you can get on these charts and look at it and figure out what you want to do. If you want to use yellow pine, use yellow pine. If you want to use spruce, use spruce. Spruce is actually stronger than yellow pine, believe it or not. And that's because they fertilize yellow pine.
Yeah.
Well, they don't fertilize spruce. Spruce is a renewable source, but it's planted back.
Yeah.
Golly, I've seen some of them mountains out in Canada. I don't know how they planted them back. It's so steep.
Isn't that crazy? Well, okay, that actually brought up a conversation you and I had off the air, and that was, I'm surprised, like the way the lumber is grown now versus the way it's been grown, 50, 100 years ago. It's growing faster. I mean, we established that it's faster growth, so that means the wood itself is less strong, right? It's weaker wood than the equivalent was 100 years ago. Well, I'm surprised that when we start to factor that in, that we've not sort of went the other way. We've talked before how lumber is cut, rough lumber is cut on the inches, so 4/4s, right? And then when it's dried, kiln, we spoke with our friends over in Mountain City a couple weeks ago, and when it then we come through and we finish it. That's where we plane it and we get down. So now when I go to the box store and I buy a 2x4, it is not a 2-inch by 4-inch piece, right? It's less than that.
It's nominal,
right? And so that's why I'm surprised though with the fast and growing trees that we've not sort of went back up to. It has to be cut larger so that when it's planed down and you buy it, it's an actual 2x4. Like, I'm surprised they've not added that strength back, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, they just, the industry's already there. I mean, with what they've been doing since they started changing.
Right, I mean, since day one.
From plank side, plank flooring to plywood and stuff like that to standardize it.
Yeah.
And, like we talked about earlier, that one time a 2x10 was 9.5, not 9.25.
Right. I mean, that's the thing is like we've shaved it down even thinner, smaller, and it's.
Well, there's an engineer out there that talks about it, and said,
a quarter of an inch along a 16-foot board, quarter of an inch is quite a bit.
Well,
it's quite a bit of strength.
But if you added a 1/4 inch to another board and you did million board feet, how much money would you make off that 1/4 inch?
Oh, I know that. Yeah, I've sawed plenty of lumber to know that. Oh yeah,
You know.
there's a reason why people are going with the band mills instead of the old circle saws, and that's one of the reasons, right? Like
It's waste, yeah.
Yeah, I can take you take a whole tree, you get 2 extra boards out of it, which may not sound much on a yellow pine or a white pine, but throw that nice old big old walnut on there, buddy. That extra board's good money. So no, I'm totally on board with that.
Here, I'll throw one at you right here, because your deck to put the hot tub on your deck's got to be 100-pound live load. Mm-hmm. Okay, so with a 2x10 on 16-inch center, 11'2" is the maximum span.
Okay. So you got a large deck, 12-foot deck. That's where you're going to have to come in. So that goes back to my question while earlier do you change it on center? In other words, do you go in there and add a 2x8 in the middle? So instead of a 16 inches, now you have an 8-inch.
Well, just know that 12 inches. Oh, if you went 8 inches,
You know what I'm saying?
They don't even put that in the chart, but that'd be a lot stronger.
Yeah.
You have to be pretty good with that hammer. Put them joist hangers on.
Fair. That's true. Yeah. That's true. All right. We'll take a break. We'll come right back. Thanks for listening. That's right. All about home construction here on WATA. Thanks for listening to us. Happy Saturday. And talking a little bit about floor joists and the span rate, things like that. So that's always fun stuff. Fun stuff.
Well, trying to help the DIY people out.
Well, I mean, it's a very important thing. And, again, we're talking a lot about, floor joists, and typically we're thinking inside. But like you said, it's a very common science that goes to things like decks as well. Not to be, not to go too crazy on the topic, but same science in terms of spans and loads and stuff applies. So.
Well, all these spans and loads really don't make any difference if you don't put a good foundation.
Right. What, right? Yeah, I mean, it all ties together. So again, just to kind of recap some things here. Typically, when you're talking about 2x8s, you're what, in that 12-foot range. When you're talking about 2x10s, you can push that up to 14, 16 feet.
Yep.
2x12s plus, 17 feet or so. What about, let's talk a minute, Randy, about some of these alternative products and these like engineered products, right? Because we have all sorts of different options when it comes to that, right? LVLs, for instance.
Yeah.
The LVL is just a laminated piece, but now you're able to get more strength in a relative size piece, right? I guess.
Correct. Most LVLs are used to support something else.
Yeah.
Okay. Instead of you can use them for floor joists, but they'd be quite expensive. I mean, there's easier methods of floor joists that would save you some money. Like your I-joists.
Right.
Tie your I-joists into your LVLs, so you can do a drop girder, or if you're able to, you can do a drop girder. And you can take those I-joists up to 40 foot long.
Okay.
Two guys can walk up with a 40-foot floor joist.
Okay.
And then you got power lambs, glue lambs. I guess a good illustration of a glue lamb is the old Cove Creek gym with those big trusses they have. That's all glued together pieces. Power lamb is like OSB. It's shredded. I got to watch it on this old house did a special on them. Right. And a machine that just shears this off and just lays it out with glue. And I mean, this I-beam, or not I-beam, but joists that they were not really a joist. This whole beam they were building is like a 2-foot by 2-foot beam. And it all come together and it got crushed. And the glue was hot glue. Then when it went out the other side and it cooled, it went through a machine that sawed it into LVLs and stuff like that, power lamps.
That's crazy.
Then the next thing it went through was a sander.
That's cool.
But each one has, whether it's an I-joist, engineered floor, they all have their own specifics too. Because when you you can go longer spans with I-joists. You might have to go a little deeper, but then the expense is more. Even though you're saving time on labor, your hangers and stuff are more expensive.
Sure, exactly.
I could
exactly
for a regular floor joist, not floor joist, but hanger for your floor joist is about $2.30. So versus probably about $6 for an I-joist hanger.
Yeah. All right, that's good stuff.
So it just depends on what you want to do with the project.
So when you're in the planning stages on this, you're trying to figure out what do I do, like which one I go with. Is it the engineer? Like I guess the architect's going to know some of the science, right?
Well, no, they do the call outs. If an architect's, even a lot of designers will do the call out on what you need to use. Okay. And that's generally what you want to stay with because they're the first line talking to the homeowner and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so they can determine that on your framing members what you want to do. 2x6s is about a give me. I mean, you can drop down to a 2x4 as long as you use something on the outside and foam on the inside.
Sure.
You know, because you can get see, code calls for 21. And so if you go a 3.5 inch wall, well, you're going to get 21.7 out of foam.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah.
But I don't know if it's a full trade-off versus losing the cost of a 2x6 versus the cost of the foam over regular insulation.
Well,
That's
all building. That's all building is okay. You've got 3 products. You got 3 routes you can go, A, B, and C. A does this, B does this, C does this, and they all at the end get you done. You know, they all at the end get the same results in terms of a house, but it's how you get there, and that's the puzzle piece of building a house, I guess, right?
It is. Well, there's a lot of science that you can put behind it.
So,
And because Jimmy Beard, a friend of mine, I ain't seen him in a long time. AA insulation said, "Randy, you're the only guy still using 2x4 walls and 2-foot centers on your framing." I said, "Well, under the IBC code, you can build 5 stories tall with 2x4s on 2-foot centers."
Yeah.
And so if they accept that, how many buildings are there around in the United States are built out of wood on 2-foot centers?
Right.
And it's all an insulation thing. And the reason we did it was so we took a 40-foot wall and we sat down and did the math.
Mm-hmm.
And because I got, at that time, OSB was $23 a sheet. I got R-Max for a $6 a sheet, which was 3.2 R value. We put R15 insulation in the 2x4 walls, so we come up with nearly 19.
Yep, that makes math. Yep.
And we didn't use 2x6. And the insulation was less money than the R19.
Sure.
So we actually, in that project, we saved money for the homeowner.
Sure. That's crazy math. Crazy math.
Well, that's where I learned to do California corners, because that way you can take your foam all the way into the corner and tape it.
Mm-hmm. And it's not a way to cut corners.
You still have to put. You still
have corners in it.
Yeah, you still
it's
have.
Not a round house.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, you got to put T-bracing in when you use it.
Yeah, I'm just giving you a hard time.
I know you are.
I'm just giving you a hard time. Randy cuts corners and makes round houses. That's where I was going with that. So, no, it's all really cool stuff. And again, but I guess the overall thing when it comes to these floor joists is that we're talking about the again sort of the ideal span for the length that it's got to span, so that you don't have so that you do have a solid floor, so it's not squeaking and moving and bouncing. And ultimately, again, it comes down to the materials you use and the space that you have to go
Correct.
span across. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff. So, but that's why when you go to the box store, you see a whole row of 2x12s and 2x4s and 2x6s and 2x8. Like, that's why there's so many choices, and that's why there's so many length choices.
Yep.
So, it's pretty cool. Cool science. Gotta love it, man. Gotta love it. So,
Well, there's a lot of science in it.
that's all building is science. So, well, don't forget, I'll put this up on the podcast. Share it with some friends. We appreciate all the listeners out there, both on the radio and on the podcast. And give us a call and shoot us an email, allabouthomeconstruction@gmail.com if you want during the week. Of course, the Facebook page is where a lot of you reach out to. We appreciate that. So, all right, Randy. Well, good luck, and then have fun this week. Stay dry. It's going to be a wet week. Probably not going to do a lot of hay this week.
Let's hope it's not.
So, all right, man. Well, we'll talk to you next time. Take it easy, buddy. We'll see you later.
Bye.